So what should I do to protect myself when I'm online? This video, yes, it's geared towards teachers for most of my videos and students, but this one really can apply to anybody. There's a few things you want to ensure to protect yourself when you're getting online. And there's a few things you just want to be careful about when you're moving around the web. This is one thing I hold near and dear, and I am I spend a lot of time helping people and becoming better at protecting themselves online and the things they should do. Now, this can go from the very basic, and I'm going to kind of show that level a little bit, all the way up to the really more complex. Again, I don't mean complex as in it's really hard to do, but there's just more steps involved. Yes, it helps protect you much better, but it can have a few more annoyances. And in the tech world, you always hear them talking about there's a fine line between security and convenience. So to be really secure and to keep your accounts really locked down, it can have its moments of inconvenience for sure. It can slow a couple of things down that I do every now and then when I just want to do something really quickly and then it pops up and I got to log in or do this second verification to get in. But to me, it's worth it, especially for bank accounts, for my email, because man, if somebody gets access to your email, there is so many things that can go wrong really quickly. So there are certain measures you want to take. Now, if you're subscribing to a newspaper or something like that, I've got a generic password I use on a number of sites because if somebody gets in, big whoop-de-doo. There's no information they're really going to get for it. But on my credit card sites, bank site, things like that, I actually don't even know my password for any of those sites. So you couldn't even ask me what my password is because I use a password manager to manage all those things. So this video, I'm just going to take a little time today to go through some of the basic steps you can take to help protect yourself and your information when online. Before we jump in though, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button down below. I greatly appreciate the support and it goes a long way to helping support my channel and will keep you up to date with all the latest tutorials that I post over the time. And while you're down there, you can also hit that little bell button that's right next to it. That'll help with the notifications when those new videos are posted. Also, don't hesitate. This topic is a big topic. I honestly could do, and I probably will do, a future video on each piece of it and go into greater depth in each area. This is just kind of that overall top looking down type video. I'll probably expand upon that in future videos, but if you have some questions on any of this stuff, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. I will get back to you and respond to all those comments. And also, if you have an idea for a video you'd like to see, go ahead and leave that comment below. I really do appreciate it. And you can also hop over to my website at adamontech.com where you can also post questions over there too. And I also run some blogs over there that kind of sometimes further expand upon these in greater detail at times, or just cover completely different topics. I will warn you, the Adam on Tech channel is a little geekier. I try to go into more stuff aimed at technology directors and things like that, but you might find some of it of use. So the first thing I want to talk about is backing up your information. There's a lot of ways to do this. I don't know how many times I've hopped on somebody's laptop and helped them out where something got spilled on it, or just, it's a computer. I don't care if it's a Mac, a Windows, a Chromebook, an iOS device, any of those things. They're still computers and things do go wrong. Nothing is perfect. So there are going to be times where the device just cruds out on you for whatever reason, either caused accidentally by you or just happens because there's a hardware failure on it. In a lot of those situations, you're going to lose your data that's on the device. So you want to make sure that your stuff is backed up. So the most well-known one is the 3-2-1 backup system. I'm going to kind of go into my own slant on what I support, but if you just look up the 3-2-1 system, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically 3 copies of information in 2 different places. That's basically what it comes down to. This is basically that tweak of this, but it's a little different. So you definitely want multiple backups. So the first thing is you've got your core files on your current computer, wherever that is. That's your first. Then from there, you might have an external hard drive, some sort of other physical media. It could be a USB stick. I would not rely on USB sticks to back up your critical information. those have a high tendency of failure. To just quickly move your information, that's okay. Because if it does fail between moving it from one place to the other, you still got it on your original source, and that's not a huge deal. But I would not rely on a USB thumbstick for long-term data storage. They're famous for failing. That's one reason why they're so cheap. But if you get spend some money on a nice little external hard drive, anything like that, then if you back up all your files to that, that's your next source of backup. Then what I would do to take it a step further is maybe purchase 2 of those hard drives, back up all your information to them, take one to work or one to your parents' house or just wherever, but just keep it somewhere else. So you got one of the hard drives at your house, one of them at work, for example. So it's off-site. You never want to think about your house burning down, maybe a massive flood, and it takes out that copy you have at home along with your laptop or your desktop. You still got that copy that's off-site, and then you can quickly get yourself back up and running. Now, the thing with that, you occasionally have to bring that drive home to back that up. So what my suggestion would be is, once a month, once every couple of months, it depends on how much information and how quickly you're creating stuff that you need to back up. What I would do is take the hard drive I have at home, connect it to the computer, back all the files up, take it to where my other hard drive is, and switch them. Leave that one at work, for example, bring that other one back with me, back everything up to it and leave it home. Then the next time you do it, keep switching it around. So that always gives you an offsite backup. The next piece to this puzzle is an online backup. Now you could use something like Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive. Any of those services work really, really well. And I would strongly suggest using that as your root. Like for me, I use Dropbox. That's my main storage. But I also do save everything to an external hard drive, and I run a backup system on my computer. So I've got multiple locations for my files. So if one of those sources does go down, I can quickly get all those back. So I would definitely choose one of those services. A lot of schools being Google Drive, you might use that. I would get something more personal, whether it's a personal Gmail account, your own Dropbox account, your own Microsoft OneDrive account. Any of those services will work really well. I just tend to default to Dropbox because that works for me. But I save all my files to that one. Then the next step is having a backup for your system. Because you don't really, yes, Dropbox, Google Drive, that is a backup. But I want something also automated. So there's a bunch of services out there. There's one called Backblaze, there's iDrive. But down in the comments below, go ahead and leave some of your favorite services, or even leave some comments on some services you might have tried and just maybe didn't work too well. I use Backblaze and we use it at school with our staff, so that's just what worked for us. When I eventually get a little more advanced storage, I'm probably going to look over at another service called iDrive. They all work really well and all work about the same. They're very easy to set up, and they usually don't cost too much money unless you've got tons and tons and tons of data. So to kind of put this all in a little nutshell, because I did explain a lot of different things, you want 2 hard drives where you can back things up. You could do one offsite if you really had to keep it simple, but I would keep that one offsite somewhere else. You want to use an online storage, so like Dropbox, Google Drive, use your own service if you've got the skills to create your own storage. Any of those, you want to use that. Then I would use a computer backup system like Backblaze or iDrive, something like that, that always runs in the background and will synchronize those things for you continuously. That will ensure no matter what happens, you always have access to your files. Even if you might lose a few files due to a backup not being quite as up to date, that's where the iDrive and Backblaze type stuff, because that always works in the background. Like for example, if I switch over to my desktop right now, where is it? Right there. It looks like a little flame. If I click on that Backblaze preferences, what you'll see is it's actually continuously running. So anytime it detects a change in any of the folders I told it to back up, it just automatically backs them up to the web for me. So it is always running. I've been a big fan of Backblaze. I've had to use it a couple of times for data recovery, and it has worked absolutely wonderfully. So I would definitely suggest Backblaze, but I know iDrive works great too. There's a lot of other solutions out there that also work. So you want your physical storage at home, keep it at work. You want your cloud storage like Dropbox, Google Drive, and then have another system like iDrive, Backblaze, or any of those other ones that back up your files as it goes. That way you'll ensure you will not lose information no matter what happens. So that's part one. The second part of this is it's more about protecting you. And it's so easy to fall into this trap, especially if you've been a teacher in a district for a long, long time. I've been in my current district for 15 years, and I fell into this trap really badly. And it's kind of hard to sit there and pull everything back apart. But the big thing is keep your personal accounts and your school accounts or work accounts. If you don't happen to be working in a school, just keep your work life separate from your personal. Don't let those accounts mix, especially for schools. If there's a freedom of information request, they can actually go in to your email accounts or other accounts and get information from it because you're a public employee. They can gain access to that. If there is a request for it, we have to turn it over. Now, I will say in my 15 years, it's never happened, but the potential is there. So you really, just to protect yourself, keep those two things separate. So I have a personal email account. I actually have like 10 of them, but I've got personal email accounts. Then I have my work account, and those do stay completely separate. It's easy to do, but I know what a lot of people do is they've got like a personal Gmail account, and what they'll set it up to do is to forward to their school email account or their work email. So they only are checking one email account because it's just a lot easier to do that. Please do not get into that habit. Keep those accounts completely separate, because if that request comes in, they still have to turn that stuff over, and I'd hate to see anything of yours turned over that way. There are programs out there that will allow you to kind of keep the accounts together but separate. I use a program called SparkMail. I can load in all my email accounts into it, and then there's an all mail account where the program itself is taking all my email from all of my accounts and putting them into one giant list, and then I can quickly check my email that way. There are a lot of different email clients out there, and all of them will do that. If you use a lot of Gmail accounts, there's one called Kiwi for Gmail, allows you to do that same thing. SparkMail, I'm a big fan of. I've used that for many years and just love it. It just works well. There's a ton of email clients out there, and they all have this capability. So that is what I suggest. Don't have your accounts forward. And also keep your personal documents separate from your work ones. That's kind of the other piece. Just keep all that stuff split. So the first thing, have your stuff backed up in the multiple ways. Second thing, keep your accounts separate, personal and work separate. Third thing is your passwords. This is the biggest one, and it's so easy to fall into this trap of creating a generic password and then doing little tweaks on it. So, the easy one is monkey123. So maybe I'll have monkey123 for my news website. Then my email, I have monkey123678 semicolon. Then for my bank site, I have monkey72436 with a semicolon. And I just do little spins on that. Or you might take your birthday or thing. You want to avoid all that stuff. The reason you do it is you want your passwords to be easy to remember, because you want to just quickly go in and log into a site and boom, you're off and running. If you set complex passwords, there's no way you're going to remember them. A lot of my passwords are 40 characters long, sometimes longer, sometimes a little shorter. They're a mixture of uppercase, lowercase, symbols, anything and everything, but they are completely random. Now, any major browser, including Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari, Google Chrome, if you use the Opera browser, all these browsers have password managers built in. And I know because I've worked with these browsers, but Safari, Edge, Chrome, and Firefox have really well-built password managers that allow you to save your passwords into their system. If you have multiple devices, it will sync it across all your devices and help you remember it. They work really well, and it's a simple way of doing it. But if it's kind of one point of failure. So if your email account gets compromised that's attached with that login, then you lose all your passwords. I've seen nightmare stories of people that use Google Chrome, for example, and use their password manager, and then everything gets lost because their email account got compromised. I like to keep these things separate, kind of a running theme here. There are programs called password managers. If you're on Mac, there's one called 1Password that works really, really well. There's one called LastPass, which is the one that I use, and that works really well. There's Dashlane. There's a bunch of different password managers out there. They can be a little overwhelming at first to learn, but it is well worth the time. In my LastPass, it is extremely encrypted. That's the one thing to know. If you go with any of these big companies like Dashlane, LastPass, 1Password, they are highly encrypted. Even the companies cannot get to your information. I remember years and years ago, LastPass had a breach, and they basically said they can't get anything. They got the digits, but there's no encryption keys that we store for your stuff. You're the only one that can do that. So they just got a bunch of ones and zeros and they can't do anything with it. So that's really, really nice. It reduces that. But the one thing to remember is you got to set a good master password. That's what all these programs require. If you think about LastPass, last password you ever have to remember, 1Password. You only have to remember 1Password to remember all your passwords. So you need to set up a really, really good password. And there are some tricks for doing it. The one I like to use is I take different song lyrics, and I'll take like the chorus that I can sing to myself in my sleep, and I'll take the first letter of the chorus, each word in the chorus, and then I'll turn that into a password. So you might take something like a saying like, may the force be with you. And you just take the first letter of each of the words. So M for may, the with T, force with the F, and you go through. And then if you have any vowels or anything in there, you might change the vowel to a number, throw some symbols. So if there's an A, maybe use an @ symbol. I use really long one, and I just sing the chorus in my head, and I can just type it as I go. And then I throw a few other random numbers. I might throw an old, part of my old phone number from when I was a 5-year-old kid, one of those early phone numbers that was drilled into your head, or just some sort of other number that was way from the past. Yes, it's something somebody could look up, but good luck combining it with those numbers. There's no way that people are going to figure that out. So there's lots of tricks. And if you need some help, there's even some password generators out there, things like that you can use. But Password Manager is the way to go. And the way it kind of works, so let me jump back to my desktop here. And what you're going to see is in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see this little red icon. When I hover over it, it says LastPass and has 22. This is really kind of sad, but I've got 22 Gmail accounts. Oh, yeah. This is why I need a password manager. Being an administrator for technology, I've got so many Gmail accounts I got to keep track of. It's not even funny. We've got a streaming account. We've got a filter account. I've got my account. I've got password managers can really save your tail. But all you have to do is when you go to the site and there's a login, you can have it auto set up where it will automatically fill in the password for you, or you can just come up to the box and you just click on it and the password will autofill for you, and it saves all your passwords. And a lot of them, like I know 1Password for sure and LastPass, because those are two I have used over the years. But in both of those, you can save your bank account information. You can save credit card information. If you have a passport, you can put your passport in there. You can put any information that you need quick access to. You can create notes in there, all sorts of stuff, and save it into these, they're called vaults is what they create. So you can save it to your vault. The other really, really nice thing is that you can also get family accounts, so you can share it with your family members. So we have a LastPass Families account. So my wife has an account, and what I can do is a lot of our login information for like our bank account, our internet provider, cable provider, different streaming services, we have those passwords shared. And I just create a folder, and any password I dump into that folder in the password manager, it's automatically shared with them, which is awesome. Then you don't have to worry about separate accounts. They always have the password. As I said, they can be a little daunting at first. I will do a video on the password managers, and we'll go a little more into depth on those things and kind of show a little more of the nitty gritty. But if you just take a few minutes and just really sit and play with it, you will learn it pretty quickly. It'll work on your smartphone. It'll work on your tablets. If you go with one of the big ones like LastPass, Dashlane, 1Password, they work on all iOS devices, MacBook, Apple. I think a lot of them work on Linux, Windows, Android devices, everything. So I have a lot of different devices, and I install LastPass on all of them. So that's kind of the last piece to the puzzle. Now there's some more advanced things you can do also. If you haven't heard of what's called two-factor authentication, it's also referred as to 2FA as short. What that means is you're providing a second factor of authentication. So your first factor is your password. The second factor is something you are or something you have. And it might be a little key. It could be an app that requires a special code. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. So for the first one, I use something called a YubiKey. It's just a little USB key. Kind of looks, let me grab. So it kind of looks like something like this. This isn't actually a YubiKey, but it's very similar looking to the one I've got. And they've got all sorts of different versions. They've got ones that'll work with NFC on your smartphone devices. They've got USB-C versions, USB-A versions. They've got Lightning versions. They've got some that are multiple adapters. It's got the NFC, and then on one side it's USB-C, the other side it's Light. So depending on the device, you can get all sorts of different combination types of these keys. And there's a couple other companies that make them. Google makes one called the Titan. I'm just a big fan of the YubiKey. That's the one I've used. And what it does is, for example, I've got it set up with my email account. So let's say my email password gets compromised and somebody gets it and they go to, Google and log in with my email account. Now it's going to pop up and say, okay, plug in your YubiKey. And if they don't plug in my YubiKey and hit the little button that's on it, they're not getting into my email account. There is no way you're going to get into it. So you actually physically have to plug that key into the computer in order to access my account. And for my LastPass account, I also have it set up that way. So even if you somehow figure out my LastPass password, you're not getting in because you need that YubiKey to get into my account. You could really, honestly, almost give somebody your password and good luck getting in. Now, don't do that. But I'm just saying that's just kind of that second layer. So YubiKeys, they're around $30 to $50 per, and I would honestly, if you're going to do it, at least get two, because if you lose one of the YubiKeys, you're kind of stuck. So at least if you keep a secondary one backed up and keep it just kind of away in you might have a safe in your house, even a deposit box at the bank, anywhere safe, keep one at work and one at home, just to have that extra security. But they're very, very easy to set up. You can get really geeky with them. You can use them where you have to have it plugged into your laptop in order to log in, or any of those kinds of things. So that's the first one, where you can actually have a physical key. The other one is, and sometimes you might have seen a term called Google Authenticator. And what it does, it's called an OTP, a one-time password. And what it does is every 30 seconds, it regenerates a 6-digit code. And what happens is when you go ahead and log into my email account, it's going to pop up and say, put in your 6-digit code. And I've got the app installed on my phone. I open up the app, go in, I select my email account, and it pops up with the 6-digit code. I type it in, and then I hit sign in, and I'm in. Now, let's say that 30 seconds expires. They do have a little cushion on either side. So it's maybe like 40 seconds. They just give you a few seconds on either side, just in case you're not quite quick enough. But let's say I enter a completely different code. It's going to error out and say, nope, you're not getting in. So it regenerates that code every 30 seconds. I use that on a lot of my servers and things like that. So you have to have that code in order to get into those accounts. So you have to have the password, and then you have to have that code. I use an app called Authy. Let me jump back into my browser here. Authy is really well trusted, and anytime that you see a site says use your Google Authenticator, you can use Authy. And what I like about Authy, Google has their own authenticator, and it's gotten a lot better over the past couple of years. They used to have it where when you create all your accounts on it, that it doesn't sync to the cloud and back up for you. So if you get a new phone, you have to redo it all. And it's not a pain to set it up, but there are some steps to it. And again, I will go into a future video on this in greater detail, but for right now, you can at least get in, and they're pretty straightforward to set up. It basically, when you go in and set up your two-factor for Facebook, for example, Gmail has it also, but what it does is it generates a QR code. You open up the app on your phone, you scan that QR code, and it sets it up for you. So there's not much you have to do. But what I like about Authy is it syncs to the cloud. So if I get a new phone, all I have to do is install Authy, log in with my account, and boom, all my codes are right there. The Google Authenticator also does that now too. LastPass has their own. So there's a lot to choose from. I'm just a big fan of Authy. I've been using it for years and years and have never had an issue. And there are so many different things you can use it with. So you may not want to go out and buy the physical YubiKey, but the Authy app, you can install it on your phone. I think I have about 30 accounts set up with it, and I'm still going through setting up other accounts. So that's kind of that geekier option if you want to be able to install different apps on your devices that you can use that OTP, that one-time password, to log in. So I know there is a lot of content in this video, but the 3 ways, just to kind of summarize, the first is you want to back your files up in multiple areas. The second is keep your personal and work stuff separate. The third is use a password manager, even if it's just using the built-in Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, any of those ones, just use their built-in ones. But if you really do want to go to that next step, which I would strongly suggest, and it doesn't cost much. I think LastPass, I pay $36 a year for it. So it's really cheap. And that's the family one that I can share out with 5 family members. So it's not that expensive, and it's really, really worth the time. It makes life so much easier. As I said, I don't know my passwords for most of my accounts. The password manager remembers it for me. That's the really nice thing about it. So I really hope you found this video helpful. Again, this is a big topic. I am going to expand upon each part of this in future videos, but I just wanted to do one video that kind of just, as I said, is that kind of overarching view looking down. And I'll do future videos that goes into each piece of this and gets a little more into the nitty-gritty and shows you a few things hands-on. But again, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to go down below and leave anything below. I will take the time and respond to them. And this is a big topic and sometimes has a lot of questions. So don't hesitate to leave questions. Or if you found a password manager or a YubiKey alternative that works really well for you, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to see what other people are using. Otherwise, this is Adam on Tech, signing off.